Hello, it's Vamps here. Yeah, just going to be oh yeah, I've got some Evolve running, um, and I'm going to be discussing Numbered Headmates. So this is this is complicated, and I don't have a yeah isn't a going to be a full rundown on everything, but I guess a brief introduction to the topic, and it might be something we come back to. It's going to be a matter of figuring out, um, yeah, how to get in the right information to front safely, effectively, to get more done on this. But yeah, you know, so yeah, what we mean, or the intention behind so numbered headmates are no, headmates whose names are in part a number, right? It, um, so the example that we can easily pull from in system is we're not going to actually give it, but is we've got at least a few who use the same noun, and that noun is also a potential cue, and then a number afterwards, as their name, moniker, identifier, whatever you want to call it. So that is what we're discussing essentially. And yes, so they can, arise for a number of reasons. Yeah. So it can be, you know, a way of keeping track of discarded headmates, right? If then programmers are making new headmates, right, for whatever reason, if they're all doing that, right, and looking for someone capable of fulfilling a specific role, or any of the roles they want fulfilled, and any that come through that are incapable of it might just get discarded and essentially tagged in such a way as to mark them as not useful, right? And potentially to keep track of the number that are unhelpful. Gives you an idea of, yeah, there's reason behind that, but yeah. Another potential option is, you know, um, maybe there's a role that you want a lot of headmates fulfilling, right? So you've got a number of headmates fulfilling that role, and it's a nice, elegant way of keeping track of how many headmates you have. In theory, it's just a way of keeping track of that, and easily pulling up the correct one at any given time. If you know which one is the correct one, which in theory you should do. Uh, it can also be a way to confuse headmate counts or expected headmate counts. Yeah, and another likely option is of course number queues, right? Are another common thing that they might be used for, as well as of course depending on the name that can also be used as a queue, and then you've got dual queues off a single name effectively, which can be very helpful depending on what those queues are. Or they can potentially even cancel each other out, so you don't necessarily think either of them are a queue. Oh, so it's harder to pick out that either of those queues are queues because they often arise together for whatever reason. They arise together often enough that because they are negating queues to each other, well, you don't pick up on it as often, right? So that's a potential there as well on that. You know, on the headmate. Okay, yeah. So yeah. From a perspective of roles that you might want significant numbers of, you know, one of the more likely options for that is some form of reporter or internal surveillance or security. You know, given that they are that is a role that the programmers are likely going to want in every location or for every other headmate, you know, at least one of, you know, and often two, if the option is available, is reasonably available. Additionally, you know, it's not uncommon to have watches for your watches, and of course, cyclical watching or reporting, you know, so that if the chain is broken, you know, if one of them is disloyal to the org for whatever reason, that is known about and reported as early and reliably as possible, right? More of them need to effectively, whilst there is still a communication line open, all of them need to become disloyal, otherwise it gets found out. You know, found out about, at which point they can reinsure loyalty in one way or another. Yes. Can also be a way to, you know, any number of smaller programs that are all on their own, theoretically relatively minor, but, you know, there's any number of on their own minor programs that you might want effectively stacked together, you know, so it's difficult to piece together exactly what the entire queue word does, because it's queuing double, triple, you know, at least double digits of headweights to do something relatively small on its own, and you've got to know what each of those are before you can piece together the full picture and dismantle it, which means finding at least double digits headmates and working everything through with them, you know, to get there reliably and safely. Which is, of course, a lot of work. That's the whole point. Can also mix the two together into the same number scheme, and, of course, as was mentioned, attempting to confuse expected headmate counts. You know, there is no reason the org have to, you know, start at a given number and work their way upwards in a reliable series. You know, you can, it's, you know, not unreasonable for them to be choosing specific numbers outside of a given, you know, outside of an easily seen sequence. You know, there's very easily seen sequences, there's certain more complicated sequences that if you've studied mathematics, you'll pick up on, and there's very complicated sequences that you have to, you know, you have to spend a lot of time picking out, and there's, you know, randomized numbers effectively all work as options, right? And of course, if you're, you know, if you find, I don't know, someone with a triple digit number in their name, the first thing that you're going to think is, okay, there's at least this many, right? That's your first thought if you're not careful about it. There's no guarantee that there are actually triple digit numbers of headmates of that particular type. There could be as low as just that one with that higher number, because that higher number has a specific queue attached to it, or, you know, any number of other things, right? Or it is there simply as pure misdirection, or perhaps, you know, it is that they made that many headmates initially, right? And they're all given the same base name to start with, and then everyone that got given another role got a different name with that role, right? This is the last unmodified split, you know, the one that wasn't given a specific role. Outside of that, and with it a new name, could be any number of things, right? It's very difficult to know which it is without. Well, we cannot say what it is for another system, you know, without a lot of heavy discussion with them, and even then we wouldn't be 100% confident answering for another system what it means for them. For hopefully obvious reasons, right? It's hard enough figuring out what's going on for yourselves, let alone another system, because you're stuck in an even lower information state for anyone external. You know, generally speaking, right? So, yeah, there's. But yeah, you know, that's all in the name of. Well, yeah, one of the functions there, of course, with any of those roles is. With any of those cases, is confusion over headmate count and the like. Right. Yes, okay. I think I'm then. Oh, yes, that point. So, one of the things that you might want to be very careful that this is one space where we are specific. Now, of course, with every new headmate or every discovered headmate, you have to be careful about your the risk of them being a part that is at least in part intent a headmate that is has sabotage programming, right, in some form or another, or recontact programming, things like that. That is always a risk with every new headmate. However, this is one area where we specifically emphasize it because um I mean it's one area where it's potentially a lot easier to mix them in, right? If you've got double or triple digits of headmates with seemingly the same moniker and seemingly the same programming for the most part, right? Whatever it happens to be. And, mixed into that are those with additional sabotage or recontacting or any, programming along that side line. Then that is, going to be harder to spot. Probably that is potentially going to be a lot harder to spot, or you're less likely to be on specific guard for it because, by the whatever time you've done essentially the same thing without there being any problems, people make mistakes and people drop their guard, right? That's the whole point there. You cannot be hypervigilant all the time. It doesn't work. So, yeah, you end up dropping your guard. And that's one reason to do it. Of course, if these are, one place where this is, particularly easy, for example, is in apparently discarded headmates, right? Most of them are, for obvious, understandable reasons, like to be relatively willing to cooperate and have relatively low levels of actual programming because they were discarded relatively early, right? So less likely to be, hugely loyal or hugely programmed in general, right? At least that's the impression that's going to be given most of the time because, it is at least in part accurate, but if you add some sabotage parts into that, well, yeah. That's really dangerous if you're not very careful about it, of course. Right. No. Yes. Be very careful then, new headmates. But this is one place where we would say, so this isn't you know this person is going to be hostile from the get-go, and you're going to have to do a lot of work guaranteed 100%. This is someone who's going to need a lot of security initially, and may take a long time, and will take a long time and a lot of work to get to the point where it's safe to leave them without heavy security, right? However, this isn't this isn't necessarily standard security protocols either. Like, if your standard security protocols, I don't know, out of 10 are, and let's say if your if your security protocols go from 1 to 10, with 1 being the baseline for trusted headmates that have mostly deprogrammed at this point, and 10 being this is a known hostile actor who has not started deprogramming at all and is refusing to start. Most new headmates you probably start at most headmates you probably start at 5 until, without any additional information, you probably start at 5. In this instance, we would probably suggest starting at a 6 or a 7, just in case. Now, how that translates for you exactly is, of course, going to vary heavily, and all of that. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, this is yeah. Part of me is very worried we're making a huge mistake here with this information, because this is newly figured out. So yeah, it might be massive misdirection, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, that's what you have on the topic at the minute. This system signing out. Hope to catch you all next week. Please do remember to like, subscribe, comment, especially if you've got any questions you want answered. Be happy to answer them either in the comments or in another video. So catch you all next week.